Hello to all Pips enthusiasts. In this video, I will try to figure out the topic of the Pips tops textures. Is there life without textures, or is it impossible to hit the table without them? Textures come in these shapes, and these, or even these beautiful ones. And there are some like this, like the bald worn-out rubber that car owners use. It's unclear who buys such Pips. Probably some beginners who don't understand tennis. Now let's effectively think and once and for all solve this topic. Some might say that there's nothing to discuss here, it's all nonsense. But there are different opinions. Someone else might say that pistols are for suckers, but knives are the choice of masters, implying that knives are the Pips with ribbed tops. And probably, both of these opinions could be considered correct. So, some players are concerned about the topic of Pips textures, whether it's better with them or worse without them, and what they give. To help these players start sleeping soundly, let's break down this topic. How can we understand what textures give? By playing and comparing the game with them and without them. To do this, we need to have some specific Pips X without textures, as well as the same Pips with textures. That is, we need two Pips that have the exact same rubber composition, the same geometric parameters of the Pips and everything else, except for the presence of textures. Our store has had approximately 1 million different Pips, and so far, it hasn't happened that two such versions of the same Pips were available. Manufacturers could make some Super Pips and their version with textures, named Super Pips Textured Edition. Sometimes manufacturers do something like that, 2 to 3 rubbers under the same name, with a slight difference in sponge or top sheet. And they add some word to their name like Pro, Hard, or Speed. But so far, for some reason, we haven't come across such a thing where manufacturers made the same Pips with only the difference in the presence of textures. At the same time, it's important to understand that manufacturers experiment a lot in search of special properties for their Pips. But the specific case of identical Pips with textures and without them doesn't seem to occur. This is already a reason to assume that if there were any sense in this, the manufacturers would have already done it. And we can be sure that each manufacturer has repeatedly tried such versions and conducted comparisons. By the way, if you are against textures, give this video a like right now. And if you're for them, subscribe to our channel. So, let's summarize. As much as we and you might want, there is no way to determine how textures or their absence affect the game of Pips. If tomorrow a pair of such Pips appear and we test them and see a specific difference, it will only mean that those particular Pips have that difference, and that's it. And this won't help us understand the influence of textures on any other Pips. Because this is the kind of question that cannot be mathematically calculated while sitting in the kitchen. The answer to it can only be found by playing with specific pimples and comparing them with something else. And the answer will only apply to these Pips. Someone might disagree and say, no, I played with Pips X, Pips Y, Pips Z, and some of the most amazing Pips. And I believe that textures give the ball a cunning unpredictable spin at an angle of 37.5. And then the ball bounces off the table along an unpredictable trajectory, dives under the opponent's racket, or flies around the racket from the side. Basically, it always flies around the opponent's racket from any side, and attackers can never hit such a ball. And because of that, they panic and run away from me when they see the textures on the Pips. At the TT Maximum shop, we have tried about half of our Pips. We have played with some for a long time, staying up at night, continuing to test to understand how textures affect the game and global warming. And we've discovered that there's no way to understand this. If you have any other observations in your game about textures, please write about it in the comments below this video. There are Pips with textures, there are Pips without textures. Textures come in different shapes, and practice has shown that both types play well. All the Pips in our store play well, or rather, almost all of them. The ones that don't play well or play badly, we mark them for ourselves and never order them again. Because we want our customers to receive only the best rubbers and blades. All Pips play differently, some are more disruptive, some are faster, some offer more control. And at the same time, it's impossible to find any connection between the game of Pips and the presence or absence of textures. I understand, some players have somehow decided that textures have some specific meaning. And they might say that they disagree, textures are important and without them, table tennis would have collapsed. Let's set aside emotions and think objectively, based on sound logic and practice. So, you have pips with textures on your racket. How they affect the game is impossible to understand. A precise comparison with the same pips without textures is impossible. The game of any pips is always influenced by many factors, such as the hardness of the rubber, its elasticity, springiness, grip strength with the ball, and so on. And it's absolutely impossible to evaluate the influence of just the textures. So thinking about the influence of textures on the game of pips in a practical sense is as useful as studying the impact of trigonometric equations with 5 unknowns when producing green toilet paper under increased radiation in rainy weather. One of our buyers, a very strong defender, played with long pips with textures for a long time. And when replacing the pips with others, he also wanted pips with textures. But it so happened that he began using pips without textures, and it turned out that he plays equally well in both cases, and the textures don't matter. We could also contact the company Inha, for example, and ask them to make us Pips X in 2 versions, with textures and without textures. But we are sure that there's no point in this, neither for us nor for the players. And if you're currently looking for good pips for yourself, feel free to contact us at our store. With the help of Holy Textures, we will help you avoid long studies of different rubbers and choose pips that are well suited for you, based on your taste and playing style. We ourselves love playing with pips and want to offer the best to our clients.